South with Teddy Atlas. Not seen here, and hopefully never. Coming up, Willie Nelson in action, a top 10 rated fighter in the world, Luis Grajeda. That's a junior middleweight contest. It's coming up straight ahead now to Doug and Brian Campbell in Bristol.
They got the easy part. Todd doesn't have to talk anymore. We have to follow that image of Teddy getting CPR from Todd Grisham. Welcome into the ESPN studios. I am Doug Kazarian alongside Brian Campbell. You might recognize his work from ESPN.com. He's a writer and editor, of course, also on Making the Rounds. All right, Brian, got a lot to get through tonight. Let's start with the headline fight of tomorrow night's tripleheader at the Barclays Center. Rod Salka and Danny Garcia, the heavily favored Garcia.
Look, this fight has essentially made headlines since the day it was announced. Not all those headlines have been good, really none at all, because in this situation, Garcia, the recognized champion at 140 pounds, facing a guy in Salka, a lightweight moving up in weight, unranked, just 3 knockouts in 22 fights. And what you have here for a prime pay cable main event is Garcia as high as a 50-1 favorite.
50-1?
I mean, when do you ever see that? And look, I got a chance to talk to Danny Garcia this week, and he was open and honest. He knows it's a no-win situation for him. He would much rather be facing Lamont Peterson, the 140-pound titleist, who will be on this undercard. Lamont would rather be facing him. I think all the fans would want to be facing him. But what it comes down to is when you have a powerful manager like Al Heyman who can get you a fight for $700,000 against a 50-1 underdog, you're going to take it.
All right, let's talk more about that. Like Garcia, Adrian Broner, Lucas Matisse have fights coming up, but not against each other. You mentioned Al Heyman. What's his objective here with this?
That's a great question. You know, I mean, I think what the fans want to say here is, why are these guys not fighting each other? But here's the thing. You're not going to get an answer from Al Heyman. You know, he doesn't do interviews. He's as famous for being a recluse as he is for putting his fighters in big money opportunities for very little risk. And that's essentially what you're going to be seeing here. But are you going to be an optimist or a cynic? If you're going to be an optimist and look at long range what he's doing, he may be slow playing and setting up what would amount to an unofficial tournament at 140 pounds with the top 4 fighters. You would have Garcia and Peterson on one side, maybe Matisse and Broner on the other if they eventually fight each other. If that is what you're looking at, this is not a bad thing. But if that is not, you have to begin to question and say, what is really going on here? If this played out and they did not end up fighting each other, I don't think it would be wrong to question in Heyman's situation. Is he sort of just waiting for these fighters that he represents that have Golden Boy contracts for those contracts to run out for maybe eventually taking his business elsewhere, which has been rumored at times since the Golden Boy shakeup? It'll be very interesting.
Why is he like that? You use words like a recluse and slow play. Why is Al Heyman like that?
You know, he's all about his fighters. He puts them in excellent spots. But we don't know on the long-term picture yet if he's all about the boxing fan, because we are seeing a lot more of these one-sided matchups each time out. He's very powerful. He can. It's assumed that he can make the networks do what he wants. So we'll really have to see long-term how this goes.
As you said, he's certainly powerful. All right, bizarre video surfaced, I think a week ago today, I believe. Shannon Briggs, Vladimir Klitschko with let's call it a confrontation at a Florida restaurant. I'm not going to say it was staged, but can you make sense of this? At least some sense of this?
Well, you know, and this was about the 4th time that a situation here was caught on camera where Briggs came to really mess with Klitschko and call him out. Look, Briggs is 42 years old, a former champion, but years removed from really being a contender, going after Vladimir Klitschko, trying to draw him into a fight. And yes, there's always a camera involved. There's always a guy ready to hold Briggs back. It's always well lit. It's always in public. But I have a scenario here. I think it's bad in both sides. If this is staged and this is fake and somehow Klitschko is involved and maybe trying to draw attention for a future fight, you know, he has that September 6th bout with Kubrat Pulev. But if this is maybe that leaves you with a bad feeling in your stomach. And if this is not that, I think that Briggs might be crazy enough where he might actually be able to escalate this and maybe draw Klitschko into this, which I think for a lot of us is a no-win situation because Briggs does not deserve this fight at this point.
So we'll just have to sit back and take it at face value, just appreciate what it was.
It's like a reality show.
Random fight at a random restaurant. Exactly. All right, Sergey Kovalev took care of business against Blake Caparello last week on this very program. Dan Rafael broke the news he would face Bernard Hopkins if victorious the next day, of course. What's the latest with this?
Well, of course, like you said, Kovalev took care of business. Now we're going to get to see that fight, which is just fantastic. They're really, you know, narrowing it down, looking at November 8th, either at the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, a city where Kovalev has really begun to make a home, or possibly at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And look, this was a fight that came out of nowhere. Hopkins had a deadline last Friday where he would have to get into a unification situation or he would need to defend him in a mandatory. And this fight fell onto our laps as fans. They got it done when a fight with Adonis Stevenson, the real division champion, stalled for Hopkins. Now he's going to face Kovalev, which, for my money, you know, pound for pound, might be the biggest puncher in the whole sport. This is a real fight. It's a nice surprise to fans.
Well, let's talk more about it. Obviously, we know Bernard Hopkins has defied the laws, right? Physics, everything, genetics, everything, right? But what can we expect from a 49-year-old Bernard Hopkins?
He's going to be 2 months removed from the age of 50 when this fight happens.
We're talking AARP.
This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, look, in this spot, he may have lost some of the quickness, some of the athleticism that he has, but he hasn't lost the mindset. You know, him and Floyd Mayweather Jr. may be the two smartest fighters in the whole sport. And he hasn't lost the boldness because, look, talk about daring to be great. At almost 50, going after the most dangerous puncher in the whole sport, a fight he doesn't have to take, but he wants to see how great he can be and push that legacy out. He's old school in more than one way, and this is an excellent fight.
And he got that unification bout because he beat the deadline, as you said. All right, that is Brian Campbell. Check out his work on ESPN.com, both written and video-wise, on Making the Rounds. 1 week from tonight, next edition of Friday Night Fights. Rustam Nugaev going at it against Denis Shavikov. That's same time as always, 9 p.m. Eastern, next Friday on ESPN2. Let's now go back out to Nevada with Todd Grisham and the legendary Teddy Atlas.